My husband, 35 male, and I, 32 female, loved children, but we had none. In the first 3 years of our marriage, we spent a fortune on treatments and medical tests. It put a strain on our marriage because I began to see my husband as a malfunctioning baby-making machine rather than the man I loved. All the test results came out positive, so we were advised to just continue our lives and that a baby would come when it was right. Thank goodness my husband was very understanding and supportive. He helped me find my way out of that difficult phase. The inability to get the one thing he wanted did not stop him from being a nice soul. In fact, he became more kind-hearted, and this time his kindness extended to animals. Can you imagine that? My husband would leave for work and return with a stray cat, an ugly one-eyed dog, a sick hamster, or something worse. I wondered where he got them. He was not even a veterinarian, although he claimed to have picked up some knowledge while volunteering at a veterinarian clinic. Though we usually took the animals to a shelter after a few days, I hated having them around, especially the disabled or deformed ones. One time, one of his stray animals chewed up my designer's shoe and disfigured it. I saw red and I couldn't stop yelling at my husband to keep his strays out of our house. We quarreled because he insisted he had the right to bring them home. After all, our house was equally his. Eventually, we settled and he stopped bringing animals home. Finally, I had an animal-free house. One day, he came home with a young man, 24 male. Let's call him Steve, not his real name. He introduced Steve as our new housemate. The man was homeless and jobless. He assured me that the man would leave immediately after he found his footing. At least he was not an ugly dog, but a human, and a handsome one at that. Initially, I was skeptical about Steve, so I decided to keep him at arm's length, but it soon became increasingly difficult to do that. He was not a cat that I could easily shoo away. He was an amiable fellow who always lit up the house with his bright personality. He was also outgoing and very hardworking. Like a virus, he wormed his way into my heart and became my favorite person. Aside from the fact that he eased the stress of doing chores, he was always there to listen to me vent. Something I suddenly found myself doing more often than usual. It was like a part of me that had been locked up for ages was set free. After he listened to my rants, he would give me a helpful piece of advice and food for thought that would have me coming back to him for another discussion. My husband was happy I found a friend in the man. He encouraged me to build and sustain the friendship. Another day I and Steve were cooking when he suddenly asked me why I didn't have a child. It was a sensitive question, so I grew defensive, but he calmly explained that he had asked that question because I and my husband look like people who should have a quiver full of children. Those words broke me, and I began to bemoan my childlessness. Perhaps it was the look of understanding he gave me, or his hands gently patting me on the back, but something made me spill my guts. I told him how about we had waited for a child, ran a series of tests, taken drugs, and done everything within our powers, but all to no avail. He asked why we didn't adopt a child, and I told him we didn't want to. We were hoping to have ours. He asked me to rate how desperate I wanted a baby over 10, and when I rated it a 10, he asked if I minded having a baby who didn't have my husband's genes. That question was a red flag. A little voice in my head kept screaming, "Retreat!" But I ignored it and told him yes. He then told me how he had 4 children from different mothers. I was like, what? He showed me their pictures and even offered to call their mothers so I could confirm, but I declined. I asked him why he was telling me this. He replied that he was super fertile and he wanted to help me with the child I surely needed, but only if I was interested. I still don't know what possessed me to jump at the offer. We got down to bed and boy, he showed me he was much younger and more vigorous than my husband. After we were done, he told me to expect a baby, but I knew the chances of getting pregnant after that one time were very slim, so I suggested we keep at it until there was a positive result. He grudgingly agreed, while stating that he didn't want my husband to find out. I assured him that my husband would never find out. Every day after my husband leave for work, I would go to his room and seduce him. A month later, there was no positive result, and honestly, it was no longer about getting pregnant. I was enjoying what we had, and I wanted to keep it going. Unfortunately, he was getting tired and wanted to call it quits, but I warned him against doing that. He pleaded with me to let him be, that he didn't want to hurt my husband. When he grew very resistant to my seduction, I threatened to tell my husband he was hitting on me. Immediately, he gave in to my will. The next Monday, I got back from the spa and met my husband pacing around in anger. I went to kiss him, but he turned his face away and yelled at me to stay away from him. I asked him what got his feathers in a twist, and he screamed that it was me. I asked him when I got the chance to do that because I was out before he woke up. He was shaking his fist furiously as he grabbed his phone from the table and played a voice note message. It was Steve telling my husband all about our secret. He lied that I had seduced him and forced him to get me pregnant by threatening to chase him away. I denied it immediately and delved into my version of the story, but my husband would not have it. He played another voice note, and this time my voice came on. It was me threatening to blackmail my lover. The evidence was too concrete to deny, and my husband was beyond angry. He warned me not to say a thing unless I wanted to see his other side, a side I dreaded, so I kept quiet. The only telltale sign of my agony was the tears streaming down my cheek. He handed me a pen and ordered me to sign some papers. I skimmed through them and was shocked to see they were divorce papers. I threw them at him in refusal, but he threatened to tell everyone about my affairs. I valued my clean reputation and would be doomed if his words about my affair got out, so I signed them. I was furious, and I told him I would leave this house after I packed my things, but he ordered me to leave immediately. He refused to let me take my belongings, not even my phone, because he bought them for me. I was devastated and pleaded with him to at least give me my phone, but he remained adamant. In the end, he dragged me out because I refused to leave. I was heartbroken and humiliated, but who could I cry to? I earned my doom. I've since been crashing at various seedy strangers' places, and I'm typing this on a library computer. I know my rights have been violated in this process, but I do not have any access to a lawyer to fight my case. I do not know what I should do now. I love my husband, and I need to get back in the house. I hate my life right now. How do I mend this relationship? Story 2. I really need to get this off my chest. I, 28 female, have been with my significant other, 30 male, for 8 to 10 years. He is truly the best boyfriend that any girl can ask for and treats me like a princess every day of my life, except in bed. We started talking about marriage and I had cold feet. I read the threads here and momentarily thought I might regret having a little intimacy and sex for the rest of my life. He has promised for much better sex after marriage, but I somehow could not bring myself to believe that. I'm an attractive person, but I felt my self-esteem plunge over the years as I continued to face rejections from the person I believed loved me the most. And I still believe he does. I just could not understand why he didn't seem to desire me. In the recent years, we didn't have much cuddling or kissing, and sex was 3 times a month, about 10 minutes each time. We do not own a house yet, and he said the stress of having sex in our parents' house has contributed greatly to this, and I agree, but I could not accept it. I just did not feel the desire. I think that could not have been faked. I really don't know anything anymore. I somehow ended up in a 3 weeks to 1 month affair. It's over now, and I greatly regret it. After my significant other found out I confessed, he told me that he had been trying very hard to control himself as we did not have our own private space and were not married yet, so we should not be having much sex. Also, he did not give me oral or finger me much as I'm very into hygiene, and he was worried that his mouth and fingers were not clean enough. Since that day he found out and I confessed to him, we have been having superb sex every day. It's been a month. In the past 10 years, he probably fingered me less than 30 times and gave me oral less than 10 times. I orgasmed once with him, the rest of myself before I sleep at night. In the past month, he learned how to give me really fantastic oral and gave me orgasms 50% or more of the time during sexual intimacy. That's more than I've ever received in the past 10 years added. The bad news is that we are probably going to end this 10-year relationship because he cannot accept the cheater that I have become. I have hurt him tremendously, and it hurts badly to see him suffer because of my infidelity. This has been a tragedy for us. I'm about to lose a really fantastic man. The man I thought I would spend the rest of my life with, and it truly hurts very much. I wish I told him how important sex was to me. My significant other said he completely did not know the pain it has caused me, even though for years I've been telling him how I've experimented ways to lower my libido. I also asked to be pleasured, but maybe was never direct or clear enough. It has to be super direct and clear so they have a chance to try and remedy the issue. Otherwise, do consider breaking up with your significant other instead of getting into an affair, as the hurt it will cause them is immense and irreversible. Please don't ever make the mistake I did. For the first time in my life, I let my guard down and gave a third party the opportunity to come between my significant other and I. I never planned to have an affair, but it happened. Outsiders who are interested will be able to sense your vulnerability, and it will be difficult to resist their advances because, come on, we are starving. I hope we all survive this torment. Update. He dumped me. I deserve it. Don't be stupid like me. Comments. If he can be honest with himself, then he needs to admit that you cheating was at least 50% his own fault. You made the choice to do it, but he rejected and neglected you to the point where that was even a possibility. It is very hypocritical of him to not accept the cheater you have become without acknowledging that he played a huge part in making you that way. I don't think he can realistically claim to not have known that she needed more when he's rejecting her often. And when he does deign to allow sex, it's 3 times a month, about 10 minutes each time. Shit, he even showed he knew she wanted better. He promised for much better sex after marriage. He knew there was a problem, even if he didn't know just how big it was. She was wrong to cheat, but he was wrong to neglect her and ignore the problem until she did.